Hey, what's up, everybody? Oh, how are we doing? How's everyone doing today? Hope, tonight, actually. Hope everyone has had a great, interesting. What's up, my catalysts? Hope everyone has had, Margaret, how are you doing? I hope everyone has had a great, weekend, last 2 weeks, honestly, since we've been live. But we've got, let's call it an interesting show. Lily, Marianne, I hope y'all are having good. And, of course, the great news is that it's Thursday, tomorrow's Friday, and it's a long weekend. Like, holy crap. I needed that. Hang on. What? Sorry, I've got a different conversation going on. I'm not paying half the attention I should be paying attention. Okay, let's go home on that. Sure. Okay, so we've got some interesting things that we're going to talk about. We're going to kind of delve into the big, beautiful bill that just passed the House, which is going to kind of segue into a bunch of different things. We may end up talking about the NFA, which is the National Firearms Act, I believe. But the thing that I want to start with first, okay, I know it says due process second on the title, but I saw this earlier today, and holy crap. First off, who's got kids? Anybody got kids here? No court. Yes. So Benny, yes. Okay. The Karen retrial. I'm tempted to try to do some more research about it and talk about it. I'm not a huge fan of retrials. I'll give you an example. The Danny Masterson case. Everyone remembers Danny Masterson from that 70s show. So he gets arrested for sexual assault, and he gets in the first trial, the judge ruled that they could not talk about his connection to the Church of Scientology, and he ends up getting a hung jury on the first trial, which means that there wasn't a unanimous verdict. Not all 12 jurors found him guilty or found him innocent. So they go for the retrial, and they decide, okay, we really need to be able to talk about Scientology. We really need to be able to connect him to these really weird people that no one likes. And they're able to do it. They're able to make him this. And look, he may be this terrible person, okay? But he ends up getting convicted because they're able to connect him with the Church of Scientology in the second trial when they weren't allowed to bring it up at the first trial. And by doing that, they were able to create this like big boogeyman that the jury, honestly, in my opinion, got afraid of. And I think being able to do things like that, being able to use evidence that you didn't have, but was already found to be inadmissible, or what's the phrase? Prejudicial, then you just get to try again with that prejudice. Like the judge ruled this is prejudicial to the defendant, and then the next time they go, maybe it's not. Like it's either prejudicial or it's not, judge. Like what the hell? Like so that shit pisses me off. I know that. So Banny, yeah, there. In my opinion, there's a case to be made for that. Like I said, he may be a terrible human being, and he may be totally responsible for everything that he got convicted of. But in my opinion, you're never going to have a safe verdict, because it's one of the reasons why Weinstein has been is having to have a second trial. It's one of the reasons why what's his name? The comedian that did it. Bill Cosby. It's one of the reasons Bill Cosby got released. What happened to Bill Cosby? Did he get were they overturned? Let's see. Vacated in 2021. Okay, so his conviction gets quashed because the media had hyped up all this stuff. And again, terrible accusations, but the media plays this role of like spreading all this information out to the jury pool, and you make your convictions reliant on a jury that only sees the bad stuff. And honestly, I think you do more harm than good. I think the media does more harm than good when it comes to almost any of that. But for everyone that's got kids, look at this. Made for children and teens. A special committee, this is out of Canada, a special committee of MPs and senators studying MAID has recommendations allowing MAID for mature minors. Okay, now MAID is medical assistance in dying. A mature minor is a child or teen who is deemed capable of making a decision for medical assistance in dying. This would essentially remove the minimum age of eligibility. The committee also suggested parents may not be consulted and wouldn't need to consent to their child's death via MAID. Children are uniquely vulnerable. Canada's first priority must be to provide high-quality medical care for children. So why is this crazy? Well, so here in the United States, we have, I'm going to simplify a lot of things that I don't think I'm necessarily wrong about, but let's see how I get there first. So we do not trust children to make any decisions. That's why we have 18. We don't trust children to know when they can have sex. That's why we have statutory rape. We don't trust children to fight in our wars. That's why you have to be 18 or 17 with special permission. We don't trust children to smoke or drink. Hell, you have to be 21 in order to drink. But that's mostly because Mothers Against Drunk Driving had a very good campaign in the 70s. We don't trust children to do anything. And Canada is now saying that we trust children to decide if they want to themselves. Like, holy crap, that's terrifying. Like, imagine, and then the kids don't even have to tell the hospital doesn't even have to tell their parents. You know, this reminds me of, so Washington just passed a bill, Bill 1296. And I'm gonna have Grok tell me what it's about, because I had him tell me about it the other week. Where was this? Huh. Maybe I didn't save it. That's too bad. I didn't save it. Damn. Okay. Let me just throw that in there. Washington Bill 1296. So this bill basically created what's called the Students' Bill of Rights. Now, here in the United States, my favorite, yeah, Lily, I have no idea why they're into that shit. It's honestly terrifying. But my favorite Supreme Court case is called Tinker v. Des Moines. And it's a case that came out during Vietnam. And Tinker was a high school student, and I think it was a family of high school students that decided that they were going to wear a black armband in defiance of the Vietnam War. They did not approve of the Vietnam War, and they were going to wear what's basically known as a mourning sleeve, to show that they were mourning for those who were dying during the Vietnam War. And the school told them that they had to take it off, or they were going to be, I believe, suspended. They said no, they got suspended, and their family sued. And the Supreme Court determined that as long as the clothing does not interfere with the lesson and does not provoke a angry demeanor. So basically, as long as in today's world, as long as the shirt doesn't basically say "fuck Trump," then a student can wear whatever they want, and they cannot be kicked out of class for that, as long as the article of clothing does not disrupt the lesson, basically. So that's one of the things that I think is kind of hilarious when we get these bills that these states, especially liberal states, decide that they want to create these Bill of Rights for students. Again, we don't trust students to do shit. Like, we don't believe kids are capable of doing anything. So sitting here guaranteeing rights to students that they already have is, in my opinion, ridiculous. So it's a waste of legislative time as well. So what this bill does, right? Okay, so the big thing that this bill does is, where was it? So it basically allows teachers to aid in kids transitioning and getting hormone blockers and all that shit, and they do not have to tell the parents. And that's what this reminded me of, is this is already happening over here. Like, we think it's ridiculous that Canada's doing this, but we already have bills and laws in states here in the United States telling teachers you no longer have to tell parents. It's like we've gone too far the other direction. You know, in the 60s and the 70s, we had teachers weren't able to tattle at all. They weren't able to call the police and say, hey, I think my student's being beaten up by his parents, or my student's malnourished, or my student is having, here are all the warning signs for, that are being sexually assaulted at home and all this shit. And we passed laws. We went through great legislative sessions, incredibly important moments. If you've never read it, I highly recommend reading the book A Child Called It. It's about a man named David Pelzer. And there's 3 of them. There's A Child Called It. Let's see, what were they? A Child Called It, The Lost Boy, and A Man Named Dave. And they're about the state of California's worst case and the country's 3rd worst case of child abuse in our history up until 1990, I think, or 2000. It might have gotten worse. But this guy survived terrible child abuse. And the reason he was in the situation he was in so long was because the teachers weren't allowed to say anything. They weren't allowed to call the police. They weren't allowed to, whether it was in the state of California or just federally, they couldn't do anything. So the fact that now we're basically giving the role of parent to our teachers and telling them you do not have to consult with the actual parent blows my mind. The fact that a country would allow kids to off themselves because they're sad is disgusting. Let's go back to the court. Back in court. Oh, I get where that was coming from. Okay, sorry, I was back on that old conversation. In reality, teachers should have a duty to tell the parents. Absolutely, Lily. A teacher's duty should be for literally only educating the student. There should be no case of teachers feeling like they have the ability to go around the parent. Now, one thing I will say about this law in Washington I was talking about, is it does still require or allow parents to opt their kids out of certain stuff, like certain sex education or religious stuff. So that is still, good job, bravo, plus for you there. But allowing teachers to go around the backs of parents blows my mind. I think it's absolutely disgusting. Mhm. How's everyone doing? We're going to move on to a little bit more of a fun topic now. So remember about 3 weeks ago, I think, we had a really dumb New Jersey mayor who was campaigning for governor, and 3 congresspeople, I can't believe I said it, 3 congressmen, rush a ICE detention center in New Jersey. Remember when that happened? What's up, C&D Designs? How you doing, man? I appreciate the watch. This is the point we're at now in this channel is probably the most difficult part of doing YouTube, and it's trying to get those watch hours. So anytime someone wants to just sit here and watch and lurk, I'm all down for it, man. Let's see. Is it news? Maybe I won't. Here we go. Okay, look at this. Holy, I don't really know if I want Axios. What's a better? I'll go with the AP. They're dumb as hell too, but I'll go with them. So, some kids are being allowed to tell kids not to. Absolutely banning. So here's a question I'm curious for everyone. Okay, who is, and you don't have to raise your hand. Obviously, I can't see you, but everyone that's older than 30. Okay, I'm 30, so everyone that's older than 30, I want you to think back to you being, 14 and 15. Okay, how many times did you see in the news teacher found guilty of, sex with minor and any of that stuff? Like, I feel like we are seeing that so much today. Like, there are so many times you'll turn on the news and you'll see 3 teachers found guilty for doing this with a minor and all this disgusting shit. And oh my God. Okay. You're sorry, Lily. So this comes in as I'm talking about this, and I was like, the fuck are you talking about? But you're talking about like stuff you did as a student, your school always told your parents about. Okay. Whew. That was interesting. Yeah, exactly, Banny. And I just find it kind of surprising and shocking. Like, I get it. This stuff makes the news. This stuff kind of sells papers and stuff. So, of course, we hear more about it. It's the same reason why after Trump was inaugurated, did all the stuff, and started going after federal employees who weren't doing anything, who were like lame duck employees, basically. It's why we started hearing about all the plane crashes. It's like it wasn't new. Planes crash all the time. But it's just because this pushed the agenda, it pushed the message, and it pushed sales. So that's why people kept talking about it. So this New Jersey representative, McIver LaMonica, I believe is her name. Oh, no, LaMonica McIver. What a name. She was arrested and charged. Just like I said, if anyone watched the video from like 2 weeks ago, I said she was going to get arrested. So she was arrested and charged under Title 18 U.S. Code Section 111A1 for assaulting, impeding, and interfering with law enforcement. The official statement from the U.S. Attorney, Alina Habba, something like that. I take my obligations as the U.S. Attorney seriously. I understand the responsibility that comes with my position, and I will work diligently to uphold the law and deliver justice to the people of New Jersey. After extensive consideration, we have agreed to dismiss Mayor Baraka's misdemeanor charge of trespass for the sake of moving forward. In the spirit of public interest, I've invited the mayor to tour Delaney Hall. The government has decided to hide. The government has nothing to hide at this facility, and I will personally accompany the mayor so he can see that firsthand. So here's my issue with this: is McCulloch v. Maryland already answered all of this. So if you don't know, which is totally cool, that's why I'm here. McCulloch v. Maryland is a Supreme Court case out of like 1790, I think. No, it's going to be a little bit later. McCulloch v. Maryland, 1819. So McCulloch was the Secretary of the Treasury, I believe. McCulloch v. Maryland. McCulloch was... Oh, no, he was a cashier of the Baltimore branch of the Second Bank of the... Wow, that is really white. Second Bank of the... Why are you so difficult to find? A Second Bank of the United States. So Maryland decided that they were going to tax this bank. And the Supreme Court basically said states cannot tax the federal government. It's one of the reasons why, one of the perks of being in the armed forces is getting on base and going to the PX or the exchange and being able to not pay taxes on what you buy. It's really great. I wish I could still do it. So I bring that up because what this is all about is this mayor, not even a governor, this mayor being upset that he's not able to make everything about himself and get into a federal building to look around. The citizens of New Jersey deserve unified leadership so we can get to work to keep our state safe. The dismissal against the mayor is not the end of this matter. Congressional oversight is an important constitutional function and one that I fully support. However, that is not an issue in this case. Representative LaMonica McIver assaulted, impeded, and interfered with law enforcement in violation of Title 18 United States Code Section 111A1. That conduct cannot be overlooked by the chief federal law enforcement official in the state of New Jersey. And it is my constitutional obligation to ensure that our federal law enforcement is protected when executing their duties. I have persistently made efforts to address these issues without bringing criminal charges, and I've given Representative McIver every opportunity to come to a resolution, but she has unfortunately declined. No one is above the law, politicians or otherwise. It is the job of this office to uphold justice impartially, regardless of who you are. Now we will let the justice system work. So first off, that's great. I'm so sick and tired of politicians and and people, whether you're a politician, whether you're a student here or an H-1B visa, whether you're and we're going to talk a little bit about that too, or whether or not you're a fucking illegal immigrant. I don't care. I don't care if you've been here for a week or if your family's been here for 400 years. If you disobey the law, you deserve to be punished, whether it's 10 hours of community service or 10 years in fucking jail. I'm sick and tired of people breaking the law and not being punished. I'll give you an example. There was a guy that I knew of. I didn't really know him. When is this? This is probably 8 years ago, maybe. That was going down the road, one of the busy roads here in Columbia. And he had been drinking. And he slammed into a van carrying 2 kids and a father and a mother. And if I recall correctly, almost killed all of them. I don't think anyone died, but severe bodily harm. He was charged with 4 counts of felony DUI. And I think he spent a couple months in prison and got out on bond or something. Actually, I think he got out on bond, that night or that morning. And I've checked this every now and then. And as far as I can tell, nothing actually happened to him, which is bullshit. Now, look, that is the attorney doing his job and getting his client off. It's the way the system works. But I find it disgusting that the system would allow that sort of criminal to get off. And that's what we see all the time. And we've been seeing it with representatives and Congress people for years who want to make a political statement, who want to get up there, be able to, campaign on, I did this. What's up? Lean back. And then they get into no trouble. Like Jane Fonda. Remember, Jane Fonda went to Vietnam and hung out with the Viet Cong. And she did that because she, was protesting the war. Again, her right. But then she comes home and acts like she's supposed to be the big girl on campus. And nothing happens. Fucking bullshit. But yeah, so this rep is finally getting charged. I don't think she's going to serve time. I highly doubt she ends up serving any time. But she may be expelled from Congress. So we saw Speaker Mike Johnson talk about the punishments that they have. They can censure her. They can do a bunch of stuff. They can remove them from committees, or Congress can expel her. And that's done via a vote. So honestly, I can't think of the last time Congress expelled somebody. And you know what? Let's ask Gronk. I don't think I was alive for it. Last time the United States, Oh, I do remember this. The dude with the glasses. He was expelled in December 2 years ago. Let's see. So this has only happened 6 times. Yes, Lily, George Santos. This has only happened 6 times in the history of the House. I think, Lily, it's going to depend on how far the U.S. attorney goes. If this goes to an actual trial, they may expel her. But what I think is more likely is I think they censure her and expel her from her committees and basically let her stay as a voting member. I don't think it's right. I think she should be expelled, especially if she ends up going to trial. But I mean, it took campaign finance fraud to actually expel George Santos, and that was 311 to 114. This if this gets that far, I think it's going to be along party lines, and the GOP still has the majority, so we'll see. I'd completely forgotten about George Santos. Okay. Oh, I love this one. Y'all, no, they don't, Banning. But again, so here's the thing. They are only what do you call it? They're only accused of that. They're not convicted of it. And in this country, we have a belief of innocence until proven guilty. So we'll see if any of that actually happens. Raiders. Oh, did Wicked raid me? You are Wicked. Thank you so much. You are so nice. So nice. Okay, let's get into the heart of this. The big, beautiful bill. Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill. So there has been a lot of talk about this bill. So one of the things I think is hilarious is this. I mean, what's the one thing that we see all the time? That the oh, actually, I have a video for this. Hang on, I have a video for this. Hey, I did a thing. That's going to be the end of my videos now, and then how I began the stream is going to be my opening for videos. Jay yelled at me too much, so I had to finally make something. So we are let's pull up this bill. The one big beautiful bill out of the Ways and Means Committee. So one thing that I think is hilarious about this is, again, you've got the left and you've got Star Wars purists. I promise you don't want me to be your pro bono legal counsel. I definitely advise you to just pay an attorney. 100% advise you to pay it for an attorney. I do real estate. I help sell you a house. I help you with all the documents, but this is as far as I go into any sort of criminal or civil law right now, at least. So one of the things that I love is this. We've heard for about 3 weeks now about how this bill is only helping the billionaires, how it doesn't help me, how it doesn't help you, the working class, the people that are, probably living paycheck to paycheck, that, have kids and all this stuff. So in the Ways and Means Committee, which is the money committee, let's share this. So this is the it's kind of the summary of it. It's not the legalese of it, because I think y'all would kill me, because legalese is fucking boring. Trust me. Okay, let me exit this. I don't want to see La Monica anymore. So this is my very first thing out of the Ways and Means Committee. Title 11, Subtitle A, Part 1, Section 11-0001. The extension of modification of rates. Let's jump down to that. So these are the tax brackets now. Assuming this bill gets out of the Senate as is, these are the tax brackets. So the current law, my understanding is that statistically most people lie in 4, 3, and 2. Okay. with I think most being in 3. And I believe 3 is somewhere in the neighborhood of like 48,000 to 58,000, something like that. I'm not a tax attorney. I don't do that shit. It's boring as hell. But you can already see that this provision lowers the amount of tax in each bracket. So let's say most people are in tax bracket number 3. That means their income tax, I believe, is 25% of their paycheck. Now it's 22%. Okay. So how does that help the billionaires more than it helps, the middle class? It doesn't. Oh, what's up, Purist? Oh man, thanks, dude. Yeah, I can't believe I haven't told everybody. I thought I had. The other one that I really like, standard deductions. Okay, so and if we got a tax attorney out there, tell me if I'm right. If we got a CPA, anyone that does their own taxes, tell me if I'm wrong about this. Okay, but currently, if you file a single, which I do, the standard deduction, like this shows, is $8,300. So let's make this very easy. Okay, we're gonna go with $50,000. Okay, so let's say I make $50,000. The standard deduction brings me down to $42,700. So that's when the math starts going for taxes. Now it's 16,300. That's almost double what it was, which means, if I'm right about this, again, tell me if I'm wrong, but that means that your income, where they start taxing you, you get an extra cushion before they start taxing you. Like, how is that bad? Let's see. We got a whole bunch of stuff for child tax credits, gift tax credits. I'm childless, so I don't really care about that right now. But the one that I want to get to, no tax on tips. This was my favorite one. I love this, and I love the one about no tax on overtime, because it's been my favorite thing to watch liberal politicians argue that that this is going to hurt the working class and is going to help the billionaires. I don't know about you, but I don't remember many billionaires taking tips. I also don't remember many billionaires working overtime. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Hokey. So yeah, what I said is right. That the deduction starting at, let's scroll back up, starting at 16,300 means that the amount of income you have to be taxed is now less than it was taxed prior to this bill. That's awesome. That's fucking awesome. Theoretically, now again, not tax attorney, it's going to depend on how the math works out and everything, but theoretically, that should mean an extra $8,000 a year to everyone. Like, again, oh, this is my favorite one. No tax on car loan interest. Oh, but I do think it has to be made in the U.S., right? This provision creates an above-the-line deduction of up to $10,000 for qualified passenger vehicle loans. Yeah, so the vehicle has to be made in the U.S. Yeah, or at least the final assembly. See right here, number 4, the final assembly of which occurs in the U.S. So I don't think my car is, unfortunately, a German car, which is bullshit, and I'll never do that again. I will never. In fact, don't ever buy a European car. Holy crap. Biggest mistake of my life. Yeah, but no tax on overtime and no tax on tips. Again, how does that help the billionaires? Like, what are we talking about? Blows my mind. Let's see. There were some. What's this? Again, all about kids. Adoption credit. Oh, cool. What's this? Tax credit is capped at. So you get a tax credit for adopting someone? That's actually kind of cool. So do you get a tax credit for adopting and a child credit? That's real neat. Yeah, Hokies. Yep. Let's see. This I find this very interesting. The MAGA accounts. Um, money accounts for growth and advancement, a new kind of savings account designed to incentivize education, entrepreneurship, and homeownership while promoting financial security. The accounts are administered by a bank or similar financial institution, and the overall program is overseen by the Department of Treasury. Starting on January 1st of next year, parents of any child under the age of 8 years old may open a MAGA account for their child. These accounts, allowable for children born before January 1st, 2024, are eligible to receive contributions from parents, relatives, and other taxable entities, as well as nonprofit and government. So, isn't this basically just the it's like a 401c college savings account? Isn't that basically what that is? What's up, Mash? I don't know. I'm not totally interested in that. Again, I don't have kids, so I'm less interested in the kids things. Um, what else we got? Healthcare. Mr. Uh, I keep assuming that parts of um that the names are supposed to mean something, kind of like the whole MAGA stuff. Let's see, extension of specials. No, I'll tell you what's intriguing though about the no tax on tips. Okay, the way I read it, this could apply to super chats. It's gonna be weird. Like, so let's see. So it has to be a qualified tip. And the qualified tip basically right here talks about, let's see, it has to be received voluntarily by an individual in an occupation that traditionally and customarily receives tips. The tip, where, let's see. I probably have to go to the actual law. I don't want to do the actual legalese of it is boring as hell. But basically, the way I read it is as long as the tip is 100% voluntary, which super chats are, and customizable, meaning as long as it's not only hey $5. And this is why this isn't, y'all know when you go out to a restaurant and you're in a big party and they say anyone that's in a party of more than 10 or 15 people is an automatic 15%. That tip is not going to be tax free. So this is going to be the first year of this is going to be super complicated because these restaurants are probably going to have to like keep the automatic gratuities in one column and the optional gratuities in another column. It's going to be it's going to be interesting. Tax attorneys and CPAs next year are going to be super busy. But I the way I read it is, so Hokies, my understanding is one of the reasons that these restaurants do the automatic gratuity is in case they don't tip. And in case they are rowdy and are a lot to deal with, that's one of the reasons they automatically do it. I don't think that will really change. I think all those kind of things are always going to be there. I'd love to move away from tipping. I think it's kind of ridiculous that here in the United States we're expected to tip for everything. How dumb is it when we go get a coffee somewhere and they turn the thing around, they ask us to tip them. It's like, why would I tip you? All you did was take my order. Why would I do that? And yeah, Hoagie's bookkeeping nightmare. Let's see. So Hoagie's, I think he proves a voluntary tip. I guess that's one of the reasons why you would keep your receipts. You probably just make the claim and then hope you don't get audited. That's one of the reasons the IRS has auditors. So I think, let's say it's Main Street Bistro and they go and submit everything because they're probably going to keep those automatic ones, and the waiter or waitress are going to keep their cash tips, and those are the ones they're not going to have to pay taxes on, so they're not going to have to declare those anymore. Or they declare them on I think it says it right here, form 4317, which I believe is basically a form that just says, hey, I made this in tips. So that one, I think, is where they would probably be like, okay, well, we need you to prove it. They'll audit waiters or waitresses every now and then and say, we need you to prove it. And I imagine you just kind of show your deposit slips, maybe. I don't know. I've never been audited. I'm, fingers crossed, prayers up. Okay. So one thing I will say that I hate for this stream is that I don't have any lawsuits to talk about. I hate that. I'm definitely going to try to have some of that. What's her name? Karen Ray. Benny was talking about her. Karen Reed. I'm definitely going to try to catch up on that. I am intrigued in the Diddy trial, but I haven't watched any of it. I've seen some reactions and stuff. The only thing that I will say about the Diddy trial is it is a lose-lose all around the board, at least PR-wise. So my understanding is that the prosecution seems to be doing a really bad job right now. And the thing that's going to suck about this is whether or not you think she's doing a good job right now. The thing that's going to suck about this is what's her name? The AG, Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi's going to be blamed for this. But all of this evidence was gathered under the previous administration. The prosecutors would have been picked under the previous administration. And Pam Bondi's DOJ is going to have to take the flak for, honestly, the plan that Biden's DOJ came up with. And I just think it's kind of ridiculous that, let's say he walks, or let's say he's not found guilty of everything, gets some sweetheart deal, which I'm sure he will because he's rich and affluent, and I think knows where all the bodies are buried. He's gonna get basically get away with it, and Trump and Penn Body are gonna get blamed for it, and it's like this isn't their fault. I would be shocked, and let's find out. Let's see if we can find this out. U.S. attorneys on the Diddy case. I doubt I get the names. Oh, okay. Jay Clayton, he's the interim U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, assumed the role in April of this year. He's overseeing it. Let's see. And under him is Emily Ann Johnson, Madison Reddick Smizer, Mary Christine Slavic, Meredith Foster, Mitzi Steiner, and Maureen Comey. Wait. Maureen Comey isn't what's his name's daughter or something, is he? Is she? Let's find out. Maureen Comey. No, yeah, James Comey is her fucking father. Holy shit. Okay, well, I don't trust this at all. Are you fucking kidding me? The head of the FBI who knew all this shit was going on, his daughter is prosecuting Diddy, and oh my God. Holy. So, Benny, I think this was a case of things got too loud on the Epstein front, and they needed a fall guy. And Diddy is their fall guy. He's their what's it called? Scapegoat. I think they're going to try to, but see, they also don't want him. They don't want him convicted, especially under this administration, because he'll talk. So I think that's why these attorneys seem to be kind of throwing the trial a bit. Let's see. Let's see if I can get like an article that tells me what people are thinking. Why are the federal prosecutors? I'm going to get put up on a list for this, throwing the Diddy case. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Well, it doesn't help that you've got civil litigation being proven to be fabricated against him. This is gonna take way too much time. I'm gonna have to look into this and read a lot of shit. That's gonna be fun. We'll talk about that in 2 weeks, guys. Don't worry about that. Okay, let's talk about due process. So we've all heard several times. Actually, we're gonna do this first. So Harvard is in a lot of trouble. Who saw this today? Harvard has had their ability to bring in foreign students revoked. Did y'all see this? They have lost their student and exchange visitor program certification. Take those off. I don't need those. From Maureen Martin. Who is she? Oh, Maureen Martin must work too. Yes, okay. Maureen Martin works for Harvard. Okay, I'm writing to inform you that effective immediately, Harvard University's Student Exchange Visitor Program certification is revoked. As I explained to you in my April letter, it is a privilege to enroll foreign students, and it is also a privilege to employ aliens on campus. All universities must comply with Department of Homeland Security requirements, including reporting requirements under the Student Exchange Visitor Program regulations, to maintain this privilege. As a result of your refusal to comply with multiple requests to provide the Department of Homeland Security pertinent information while perpetuating. Oh my God. Perpetuating. Holy crap. Just call me Jay. Perpetuating an unsafe campus environment that is hostile to Jewish students, promotes pro-Hamas sympathies, and employs racist, diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. You have lost this privilege. This revocation of your student exchange visitor program certification means that Harvard is prohibited from having any aliens on F or J non-immigrant status for the 2025-2026 academic school year. This decertification also means that existing aliens on F or J non-immigrant status must transfer to another university in order to maintain their non-immigrant status. This action should not surprise you and is the unfortunate result of Harvard's failure to comply with simple reporting requirements. On April 16th, 2025, I requested records pertaining to non-immigrant students enrolled at Harvard University, including information regarding misconduct and other offenses that would render foreign students inadmissible or removable. On April 30th, Harvard's counsel provided information that he represented as responsive to my request. It was not. As a courtesy that Harvard was not legally entitled to, the acting DHS general counsel responded on my behalf and afforded Harvard another opportunity to comply. Harvard again provided an insufficient response. Consequences must follow to send a clear signal to Harvard and all universities that want to enjoy the privilege of enrolling foreign students that the Trump administration will enforce the law and root out all the evils of anti-Americanism and anti-Semitism in society and campuses. If Harvard would like the opportunity of regaining certification before the upcoming academic school year, you must provide all the information requested below within 72 hours. Okay, this is what they want. Maureen, she might be. Oh, is she the one? Y'all remember this couple of she the one that committed oh, she stole her like thesis paper, didn't she? Maureen. Harvard president. No, the Harvard president is Alan Garber. Maureen Brady. Oh, she's a professor of law. She's the deputy dean. No, not perjury. Oh shit, what's it called? It's not copyright. What is it? Plagiarism, yes. Let's see. So this is what she needs to do. I expect full and complete responses to the following requests. Oh, this is no. She also tells her, please be advised that providing materially false, fictitious, or fraudulent information may subject you to criminal prosecution under 18 USC section 1001. Other criminal and civil sanctions may also apply. Oh, of course he did. I expect full and complete responses to the following request. Any and all records, whether official or informal, in the possession of Harvard University, including electronic records and audio or video footage regarding illegal activity, whether on or off campus, by a non-immigrant student enrolled in Harvard University in the last 5 years. Any and all records, whether official or informal, in the possession of Harvard University, regarding dangerous or violent activity by a non-immigrant student. The same stuff regarding threats to other students or university personnel by a non-immigrant student enrolled in Harvard. The same kind of stuff regarding deprivation of rights of other classmates or university personnel by a non-immigrant student enrolled in Harvard University. Any and all disciplinary records for all non-immigrant students enrolled in Harvard for the last 5 years, and any and all audio or video footage, any protest activity involving a non-immigrant student on a Harvard University campus in the last 5 years. I can't list. Good night, man. Sleep well. I hope you have a great night. So, in order for Harvard to get their certification back, they have to provide Kristi Noem with all this stuff. Now, this is going to lead into the final topic of the night, due process. So we've heard several times where, especially regarding the Maryland guy, that due process is being denied to all these people. And the problem is that we have basically institutionalized this idea that due process is being able to get in front of a judge, being able to be Mirandized, being able to tell your side, being able to make the system work for you, all this shit. And it's not. At the heart of due process is the ability to basically plead your case to somebody. It's not being able to and honestly, you know what? Let me retract that. It's not even that. It's being able to be afforded the process. And let's use the Maryland guy, for example. So let's call him Gomez, because I don't remember his name. So Gomez's due process, which everyone now, there was a statement that somebody made. I can't remember who made it. I think it was Trump. It might have been Rubio, but it was somebody. Somebody made the statement basically that due process is not afforded to non-American citizens. And that's not true. If you are in this country, whether legally or illegally, you are afforded due process. Absolutely. Whether it's under the Fifth Amendment for the federal government or afforded to the states under the 14th Amendment, you are provided due process. The problem is that everyone thinks that that due process is what you see on Law and Order, and it's not. In the case of Gomez, due process is going through the process of being deported. He was already supposed to be deported. He was already found guilty of all the illegal affiliations, being an illegal alien, all that stuff by an immigration court like 4 years ago. So he was going to be deported. He just hadn't been. That's it. There was no deflection of due process. There was no denial of due process. That's due process. And for these senators and these representatives to act like due process was denied to this man is ridiculous. So you've got procedural due process, which obviously from the name of it focuses on procedure. And then you've got substantive due process, which is basically fundamental rights. So in this case, you'd have, my substantive due process would be that the police cannot just walk into my apartment. They have to have a warrant. They have to ask permission, all this stuff. My procedural due process is that I cannot be locked away in a hole in the ground. habeas corpus, produce the body. I have to be arraigned. They have to produce me. If I have an attorney, they have to produce my attorney. Absolutely, C&D designs. That's how they change the definitions of words. All that they've been doing, and they've been doing this brilliantly for the last 20 years, is they get up there and they yell and they say this, and suddenly this becomes the law. This becomes the definition. And that, Hokies, that is why Rand Paul got up there and filibustered the nomination of John Brennan as the CIA director for, I believe, 19 hours. And he forced Barack Obama to admit that he did not have the right to drone strike a United States citizen without due process. Obviously, he eventually, the courts basically showed that he has the right as long as due process goes through, but unfortunately, a lot of that due process now is secretive. Change the definition. Recession, yeah, exactly. They actually did that, didn't they? They changed the definition of recession like halfway through the 2022 recession. So, what is due process? Where does it come from? Well, if you're very interested, I actually made a video about due process on King's Advisors. But I'll expound on it a little bit here. So due process comes from federally, due process comes from the Fifth Amendment. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And it applies directly to the federal government. Now, the due process that we have in state court comes from the 14th Amendment. It says, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Again, due process simply just means following the process that's laid out. It doesn't mean you get special treatment. It doesn't mean that here are the 40 things that you can appeal or do all this stuff. It just means as long as A through Z is done, we're done. Let's see. I actually thought there was a lot more about due process than I guess there really is. I kind of nailed it on the head. Whoop. I did not drop that. I mean, are we talking about this? So what does procedural due process look like in federal court? Because that's what we're going to have a lot talked about is federal due process. You're not going to hear a lot about state due process in the sense of state agencies. So federal due process, right to a fair and public trial, right to counsel in federal cases. How are red? What do you mean, Hokies? And protection against self-incrimination and double jeopardy. So what does that mean? Well, the Fifth Amendment, which is what due process is under, basically says that you have the right to a quick and speedy trial. You have the right to an attorney. That's where Miranda comes into play. Miranda v. Arizona was a case out of, you guessed it, Arizona, where this guy was not made aware of the rights that he had. And it's why police officers now carry what are called Miranda cards, and they have the whole thing on it. And, it's the same thing you hear in Law and Order. You're under arrest for yada, yada. You have the right to an attorney. If you don't have an attorney, one will be appointed to you by the courts. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Do you understand these rights as I've read them? And that's actually, there's a contention on whether or not you have to finish with that. Do you understand these rights as I have read them? Because some departments weren't doing that, and they were actually getting arrests thrown out because they weren't asking whether or not the arrested people were aware of were understood their rights. And so when they weren't getting an affirmation on that, they would just start asking them questions. In fact, if anyone remembers, and this is that I think this was the thing that really broke me in the system. Who remembers the Kyle Rittenhouse trial? So Kyle Rittenhouse, one of the things that he did was he remained silent. And that is like day 2 of criminal procedure. That that being silent. Here Hokie said, how are red flag laws upheld? They decide you lose your gun rights with you not knowing. You do not find out until the police show up, take your guns, then you have to fight to get them back. So, red flag laws. Okay, I am kind of mixed on red flag laws. I'll tell you why. Because I know people who have been Arnold, you know what word I was saying, and have talked to me about wanting to not be around anymore, but also about wanting to buy one. And it's like, it's a right. You should be able to. You want to buy one, go buy one. But then, why do you want one? What are you going to do with that? And so, like, I get it. I understand why they exist. Luckily for me, they do not exist here in South Carolina. I get why they exist. And Lily is 100% correct. It's the same issue with the no-fly list. Okay? You throw a fit on an airplane, you end up with a no-fly list, and they don't tell you until you show up to the airport to get on a plane. And they tell you you're not allowed on here because you're on the no-fly list. It's a violation of due process. Absolutely. Unfortunately, it's not the only thing that makes law a law. So if I remember correctly, the legality of the no-fly list and the legality of red flag laws actually both haven't been like a major trial in a while. And my bet would be if someone were to sue their states for violating their due process in regards to either the no-fly list federally or their state's red flag laws, I think some of these would get overturned. Because you're right, they are a violation of due process. The problem is there's a balance test. Oh, I wasn't prepared for this. Okay. So when the courts try to decide whether or not a law violates one of the amendments, they do a balance test. And if the law is going to violate an amendment, it has to have a good reason. It's one of the reasons why free speech zones are still allowed to exist at public universities, because allowing students to go from class to class without being hindered by political speech is something that we put a high that we want students to be able to do. But we also don't want people to be able to speak to students. So it's why when these free speech zones are created, they have to be in high traffic areas. They have to be publicly accessible. They can't be stuck over in the corner. Things like that. It's one of the reasons that the Bush administration, the second one, got in some trouble in the mid 2000s because the Secret Service would set up free speech zones for protesters, not on the parade route. So they were violating the protesters' freedom of speech because the free speech zone, which is legally okay, was not being set up to the test that the Supreme Court created. Again, where you got to find that line. You got to have that balance. Okay. Red flag law is bad, but we believe the preservation of life is more important in that case, but not in abortion. So where's that balance? And unfortunately, that's the test that red flag laws and things like the no-fly list has created. But I do think that if someone were to challenge that today, my guess is a 6-3 decision. That'd be cool. Someone should do that. What, man? People go out there and challenge these fucking laws. Come on. I'm too busy. What was it? What was I talking about? You were talking about due process, Fifth Amendment. Damn, I don't remember where I was. Shit. Fifth Amendment. We were on Miranda. Oh yeah, okay. I don't want to do that. That would take too much time. Oh well, fuck it. So Fifth Amendment creates due process. Like I was saying, right to an attorney, right to quick and speedy trial. That's one of the reasons why the Fourth Circuit is so such a legislative powerhouse, because they have what's called the rocket docket, and they try to have cases, tried very quickly. Self-incrimination and double jeopardy. If you're convicted if you're found innocent of a crime, no matter what, you can't be charged for. You can't be charged for it again. You also cannot be charged for lesser included charges. So if you're found innocent of first-degree murder, you can't be tried for second-degree murder. It's a lesser included charge. Let's see. Okay, so I think that's it with due process. Does anyone have any questions? I should have asked this throughout the stream. I forgot to, but are there anyone see any stories that popped up that they were like, I don't understand this. How does this work? And let me see if Grok has a good answer for you, Hokies. Oh yes, Lily, that is really interesting. Okay, let's talk about that dumbass Kidget Brown. Holy shit, does she talk a lot? Did y'all see that graph? Words by justices. Supreme Court justices. Ooh, oh, wow, you're not going to be able to see that at all. Oh, Jackson's her last name. Here we go. Look at this. Well, C and D, ask them. Justice Jackson spoke 11,003 words. Justice Thomas, 1,681. Y'all remember now the issue with Supreme Court oral arguments is they really end up being not about the case at all, Remember years ago, 2010, I believe, it's the Obamacare case. They ended up talking about broccoli for like 15 minutes. Okay, the oral arguments really are really just them trying to get answers to very specific questions without asking the questions. They rarely have any actual deterrence. They rarely change the justices' opinions. And in fact, one of the things that I think is hilarious is there are some political scientists out there who, I forget their names, but they have written several, or they've done several studies on the Supreme Court, and they argue that the Supreme Court makes decisions based on their ideology, and they use 5-4 and 6-3 decisions to argue this. The problem is, if you look at the last like 7 courts, I've never done the Roberts Court, or at least the newer Roberts Court, but the old guard of the Roberts Court. So basically, up until Scalia died. If you went back and looked for like the last 7 courts, they actually argue. They actually not argue. They actually rule based on the law much more than they do based on their belief systems. Because if you go back and look at these, you take First Amendment issues, which are the issues most likely to bring up our political biases. And you look at you include 9-0 and 8-1 and 7-2 decisions, unlike these political scientists, and they are more likely to side against the breakdown of the court. So the Rehnquist court, for example, was a conservative court. I think it was 6-3 conservative. But the Rehnquist court, if you include 9-0, 7-1 and 8, or 7-2 and 8-1 decisions, the Rehnquist court actually voted liberally on First Amendment issues more. I think it was like 3-1 than they did conservatively. So this idea that Supreme Court justices are, taking money for their political ideas, I think is unfounded. I think you've got people that definitely don't belong. I don't think Justice Jackson belongs on the court. I don't think she's done a good job at all. I think this chart kind of shows it. A justice shouldn't have to talk this much. They're not YouTubers. These are supposed to be the 9 best jurists in the country. And they shouldn't have to. Also, is it kind of funny that the top 3 are women? Like, what are we doing here? One of these things is not like the other. Why did I bring this up? We were talking about SCOTUS. I know, Lily. I know. Oh, right. The scope of injunction. So, like, the injunction thing and the birthright citizenship, those are going to come out October, I believe, is when decisions should start coming out. And my guess is that birthright citizenship changes a little bit. I need to look at the case that is being tried in the Supreme Court. Let's see, birthright citizenship SCOTUS case. So what I think is going to happen is what is the case that they are listening to, though? I think this is a hearing on whether or not Trump's blocking can actually happen. The Supreme Court on Thursday seemed open to lifting a series of nationwide orders blocking President Donald Trump from enforcing his, even as several of the justices wrestled with the practical implications. Okay, so this is what happened. So, like we've seen several times this year, Donald Trump created an executive order, and a federal judge blocked it. It just happened again earlier today. I think it was Caroline Levitt, isn't that the press secretary? Has already said, they've said several times, they know that a lot of their orders are going to get blocked by federal judges, but that when they get to the Supreme Court, that they will most likely be upheld. So I don't think they're really that concerned about it. This is the one that I think is going to really lay the foundation for the Supreme Court's role in Trump's administration. If he's able to get by and enforce his orders revoking or limiting birthright citizenship, I think you see the Supreme Court. Honestly, I think you see federal judges decide to play ball and just kind of stop with these nationwide injunctions. And Hokies, yes, going to the Supreme Court does take time, but it can take time depending on what the case is. If it's an actual case and that makes it all the way to the Supreme Court through appeal, that's going to take time. But if it's because I think what we have here is we don't have that. We have an appealed to the Supreme Court injunction, which the Supreme Court will rule in whether or not the judge can actually block the order. It's sort of like what we saw with the federal judge that allowed the 12,000 12,000? I think it was 12,000 immigrants to come in. What you have there is you just have a judge saying, no, you're overreading into what the appeals court said. The Trump administration is likely going to appeal his order. It's going to go back to the appeals court, and the appeals court is going to say, now you're overreading. Here's what we said. And then the actual court shit will happen. I think this is more likely to be a case of the Supreme Court rules probably along party lines, maybe 6-3. Maybe Amy Coney Barrett decides not to be a complete loser and sides with the conservative side and actually says that Trump does, as the chief executive, have the power to limit birthright citizenship. The problem is that there's already a Supreme Court case that created birthright citizenship in 1898. So we would need an actual final decision from the courts to actually appeal to the Supreme Court to remove birthright citizenship. This is basically just my understanding, at least, is that this order basically halts everything until Congress can act. Of course, it takes Congress 1,000 years to do anything, so we'll see. Okay, who's got any other questions? Oh, Hokies, that's cool. Scalia gave a speech here. That is really neat. But yeah, the injunctions thing, that's going to be interesting. They definitely seem willing to remove that power on federal judges because they brought up that I think it was Gorsuch that was asking why do they seem so more prevalent now, and the U.S. attorney for the government was saying that They used to not do that until like the 60s. So it wouldn't surprise me if this oh my God, guys, if this court decides that to limit that power and go back towards the way things were done in the past. Pilgrim, I'm not going to answer that because it's a stupid question. What is the airspeed of an unladen swallow? So I don't have an answer for that, but I do have an answer for you, Banny. What happens if it turns out that prosecutors are throwing cases? So I mean, there's a whole bunch of recourse. They'll be fired, obviously, is what should happen. You can be judges or bosses can refer them to the bar. They can be punished by the bar depending on like why they threw, what they threw, things like that. They might be suspended for a period. They might be completely disbarred. So there's a lot of things that can happen. My guess would be if it was the case of let's use the Diddy thing for example. So let's say Diddy called up Comey and said, "Hey, I'll pay you, $3 million to throw the case." Well, if she gets caught, she's probably getting disbarred. California. It's always California. Do all their old cases have to be reviewed? What do you mean? Like, do the Supreme Court review their old cases? No, they do not. If you're talking about like on an annual basis, no. Now, if you've got a case where, let's say Pilgrim v. the U.S. gets up to the Supreme Court and it's a question that was formally answered in another court case, then they may uphold their earlier decisions, or they may just decide, hey, we were wrong 30 years ago when we made this ruling in state v. U.S. So we're changing our minds now, and this is no longer an actual thing. Pilgrim, as your unappointed, unpaid, unlicensed in your state attorney, I would tell you that's a dumb thing to do. But again, this is not legal advice. I really need to make a disclaimer video. Let's see. Any other questions, guys? Yes. So the way that happened, oh my gosh. I remember when that happened, and that made so many people angry. So one of the things that happens a lot is a case is decided in 1960 when we had antennas in our TVs and rolling rotary phones and all this stuff, and you still call to order your shoes and things like that. And then technology advances, the law does not advance, and you've got probably about a period of 3 years where the law has not caught up with technology. And then the law goes, oh, hey, in this case, this is definitely what happened. The federal government goes, oh, hey, we could be making a lot of money if we charge tax on this stuff that they're buying off the internet. At which case, in this case, I think it was the state. This is sales tax. I think it was the state that sued Amazon, I believe. And that's how it happened. before we do, we're not gonna end quite yet. But before we do, people are starting to leave. I do want to say, guys, we're at 142 right now. Subs. I really would love to hit 150 by the end of the weekend. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. I think, and obviously, I'm biased here, but I really think that there's some great videos in this channel. This live stream hasn't been the best, I'll admit. I definitely probably wasn't as prepared as I should have been, but I'm also very busy at work. So I'm just going to take the mea culpa and tell everyone that in 2 weeks, when we do this again, it's going to be even better. Because I'll have actual court shit to talk about. Lee, so we hit 100 watch hours today. We need 3,000 watch hours to be able to do super chats and memberships and things like that. We need 4,000 watch hours and 1,000 subs to be able to do, full monetization. Thanks, Pilgrim. So we're currently at 142 subs and I think like 101 watch hours. Obviously, live streams are going to help with the watch hours. But it's the subs that I'd love to get those up. Obviously I have certain goals and things like that maybe will come to light later. But if you've enjoyed this, several of y'all have stayed. So if you've enjoyed it and you haven't subscribed already, I just ask that you subscribe. And we can share my cool little video. Love it. I had a lot of fun making that one. Oh, Lily, I appreciate that. Yeah, Banny, the auto pin is going to be very interesting. So there was an issue in like 2010 when Barack Obama was overseas and he couldn't get back in time to sign a bill before it died. And he was allowed to use the auto pin. And the auto pin's been around for 50 years, I think. I think Clinton used it. I think Reagan used it. So it's been around. The problem becomes, did the combination of the auto pin and the combination of Biden's decline, his mental decline, does that have an issue? And honestly, I think if these stories about interns charging people for pardons, I think if that's true, then I don't think Biden is in trouble in that case. I think there's stuff that Biden could definitely be in trouble with. But in that case, I don't think he's in trouble. I think those interns, if that statement becomes true, and I think those interns belong in jail. I think the people who were pardoned are going to be investigated, whether or not this DOJ actually convicts anyone or takes anyone to court. We'll see. But it's going to be I think it could be a shit show if this thing comes out as. And again, it's all going to come down to whether or not Biden was aware of what was happening. If they can prove that Joe Biden was unaware, whether no one told him or whether he was just not there anymore, I think everything that his name got put to is done. I think it's over. Lily, why does it make you nervous? Is it so? One of the things that makes me nervous about it is who gets to decide that he was unaware, and are they going to try this with Trump's stuff in 3 years if they win again? I don't think they're going to win again, but if they do, like, are we going to be in a perpetual cycle of, hey, he didn't know what he was doing, he was obviously dumb, blah, blah, blah. Like, what's going to happen? I honestly, and I've said this a couple times, and before she opened her dumb mouth and said okay, and if Mexican Iron Man's in here, I doubt he is, he would have said something, but he's going to yell at me for this. But for a while, I was, being from South Carolina, I was a pretty big fan of Nikki Haley. And I've always considered that she did a pretty good job as our governor. And for a while, I thought she'd do a pretty good job as president. And of course, then she said the whole thing about we need to remove anonymity from the internet. And it was like, holy shit, you're an idiot. But shit, I do this too much. I go off on a tangent and I forget where I was going. Oh yeah. But I've always said that what we need after Trump is someone to pull both sides. Because we've all seen that meme that shows like the middle stayed in the middle and the right stayed right here. And then the left went too far to the left. And so now everyone that was over here is now over here. We need someone that's going to be able to pull both sides a little bit back towards the center. And I think I always kind of thought that what you would need is someone that was a little bit establishment, but wasn't like, and in this case, I think JD Vance is that guy. But wasn't like a outsider. Obviously, Nikki Haley no longer fits that description. Like, holy crap, was I wrong? Look, I'll admit it. When I was wrong, but holy crap. Yeah. So, and then of course, guys, we saw this. I tweeted about this. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. So let's shake this down, present this. So Jake Tapper says President Trump isn't being transparent about his health records and claims the legacy media is incredibly polite. That's why they overlooked and failed to report on Biden's decline. So he's not writing this book. He didn't write this book so that he could become a journalist again or so that he could switch sides and make a bunch of money. No, he wrote this book because the Democrats have decided to go away from Biden, and they decided that they need a new thing to attack Trump with. And so now they're going after Trump's health. That's the only reason this book exists. If they hadn't lost so badly, they would have used any other thing. But they need a new big red herring to scare everybody, and that's what this book is. I'm still going to read it. I still think it's going to shed a lot of light on those last, let's say, 18 months in the Joe Biden White House. But do not think this is some magnanimous gesture by Jake Tapper. This is a Trojan horse. Hokie says Congress needs to get their act together. If they do not codify what people voted for, what are they going to keep voting? Yeah. Look, I think the big beautiful bill is a great step. But there's a lot for them to do. There's a lot of stuff that they need to get together on. And it's bullshit that a lot of this stuff has. I think it's ridiculous that they were off last weekend or last week. They went home on like Thursday. I think that's retarded. Obviously they're going to be at work tomorrow. I don't think anyone's talked about adjourning tomorrow. I think they're going to be working through the weekend. But it blows my mind when we every 7 months we see a new story about Joe Biden has been on vacation for 432 days of his 700 days as president. Barack Obama has played golf for 30 days in the last 50 days. Donald Trump is on his 5th trip down to Mar-a-Lago to play golf. And no one talks about the fact that Congress hasn't done shit. Congress has passed like 5 bills. 5 bills in 5 months. That's bullshit. Pilgrim, that's a great point. Exactly. Question the health of the man who got shot and instantly got up and said, fight, fight, fight. Speaking of which, we're coming up on that anniversary. Oh, hey. It's almost end of May. Art of the Surge. Any news on Art of the Surge season 2? Still just season 2 coming soon. This is bullshit. Yeah, look, Lee, I think Trump has done a little bit of damage here. I think Trump going after Massey and Rand Paul, I think was a mistake. I think that what they should have done, or what Trump should have done, is he should have made an effort to sit down. He like even if you just do like a thing for TV where you say, I'm these two highly respected representatives and senators who have held the line for the last decade. They have an issue with my bill. You know what? I'm inviting Representative Massey and Senator Paul to the White House, and I want to talk about this. And even if you just do, your picture, your photo op, and then just go in behind closed doors and talk about it, that is what I want to see Trump do. I don't want to see Trump trying to primary these people because, again, look, I think the no tax on tips and no tax on overtime is a beautiful thing. I think it's a credible thing. But I do agree with Massey that, and actually it wasn't Massey. I think it was, and shockingly, it was who's the dumbass at the Daily Wire that keeps saying cartoons are for children, not adults? Someone's going to beat me to it. Matt Walsh. So Matt Walsh tweeted something the other day that I completely agreed with. The no tax on tips and no tax on overtime is discriminatory. It is. And honestly, I think there's a decent chance that even if this passes, it could get struck down by the Supreme Court because it's not applied fairly across the board. That doesn't help me as a taxpayer. It doesn't help a lot of people. Well, it doesn't help a decent amount of people. It's going to help a lot of people. It absolutely is. But I think to act like this is the greatest thing we've ever seen in a tax bill is a little deceptive. I like it. I'm excited for what it could mean further in, but unless they move quickly and get a bunch of these other things done, some of this stuff's going to get overturned by the courts. But Hokies, I agree. Taking suppressors off the NFA is a great push. I don't want to see the Senate. So the Senate is going to try to attach short barrel rifles to the bill, and I don't want to see them do that because I don't want to have to go back to the House. It only passed by like 2 votes. So if Massey, as I agree with him, but I want to see this other stuff get passed. So I don't want to give anyone the opportunity to gain support from other people and vote against it. So I'd rather them try to do a straight line bill later and for short barrel rifles. Yes, this is what he said. Arbitrarily granting a tax exemption to service workers isn't right or fair. The government should not be using the tax code to arbitrarily pick winners and losers. If the income of a waiter shouldn't be taxed, then no one else's should be taxed. That's the option I prefer. And I 100% agree. The lady working at McDonald's should not be prioritized over me. It's not fair. And we are about fairness in this country. Again, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good start and it's going to lead somewhere. But what I don't want to see happen is them to rest on their laurels. I don't want this to get passed and then, 423 reps campaign on, hey, all of you that are in my district that now have a bunch more money, you're welcome. And they didn't do anything for me. Well, I say that those other tax things are going to help. Everyone is going to have more money in their pocket, but I would rather see an elimination of the income tax. And again, we keep seeing these tweets about Donald Trump wants to remove the income tax for people making less than $150,000 or people making less than $200,000. Where's that? What about these? And why aren't the Doge stuff? Why hasn't that been? And see, that's why the judges are able to keep stopping Doge, because none of their stuff is being placed into the law. None of it is being legislated. It's all just it's like federal ideas. It's not even executive orders. I'm just disappointed. I was hoping for a lot more. Again, this is more than we got last time, but I was hoping for more. Big issue for me is how OT is taxed now. It's insane, and depending on many hours, it's not even worth it a lot. Yeah, absolutely. Overtime, the overtime is not even taxed at the same rate that your normal pay is taxed at. It's taxed at a higher rate, which is who the fuck thought that was okay? Okay, I think we're gonna call it there. Before I do, though, I just want to ask one last time. Anyone got any? Well, I will add this. If you have any questions, anything that you want to see a video on, anything that you want me to bring up in our next live stream, DM me on Twitter, message me on Discord. If I don't know if I have any mods in the chat, but if anyone wants to drop my Discord link, in fact, I'll just go ahead and do it right now. In fact, no, that'll work. Copy. Here's the link to the Discord. Feel free to join right now. It's not incredible right now. There's not a lot of people talking in there, but we'd love to have you. And of course, you'll be able to message me and ask questions, and maybe we'll get some videos up about that stuff. Until then, guys, I hope you all have a great night. I hope everyone has a blessed weekend. And again, do not forget the purpose for Monday. Monday is not a day to go to the lake and grill hot dogs. Monday is a day to remember the fallen soldiers, the fallen Marines, the fallen airmen, sailors, Coast Guardsmen of the United States, the people that have laid their life down, that have given up their sacrifice, that instead of going to college and going to work and doing this stuff, they put on a uniform, they stood to post, and they fought for you. Do not forget that. And remember them, if not just on Monday, but every day of the year. Guys, I hope you all have a great night. And I can't wait to see everyone off and on throughout the weekend. Peace out.